Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. We're talking about America's awful housing shortage and solutions to address the problem. Learn about midterm rental properties, then meet our new second investment coach today on Get Rich Education. Taxes are your biggest expense. The best way to reduce your burden is real estate. Increase your income with amazing returns and reduce your taxable income with real estate write-offs. As an employee with a high salary, you're devastated by taxes. Lighten your tax burden with real estate incentives. You can offset your income from a W-2 job and from capital gains. Freedom Family Investments is the experienced partner you've been looking for. The Real Estate Insider Fund is that vehicle. This fund invests in real estate projects that make an impact, and you can join with as little as $50,000. Insiders get preferred returns of 10 to 12%. This means you get paid first. Insiders enjoy cash flow on a quarterly basis, and the tax benefits are life-changing. Join the Freedom Family and become a real estate insider. Start on your path to financial freedom through passive income. Text FAMILY to 66866. This is not a solicitation and is for accredited investors only. Please text FAMILY to 66866 for complete details.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE. From Concord, New Hampshire to Concord, California, and across 188 nations worldwide, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education. This is where you make those decisions so that your quality of life exceeds your cost of living, and you just keep expanding that gap. Yeah, that gap between your quality of life and cost of living is known as your wealth, your lifestyle, your sense of meaning, your fun, your relationships, and your contribution to others. And that's something that everyone should be a part of. And, I think that what you do as an investor is an epiphany to lay people. Most people think that real estate means that you're fix and flipping homes, or perhaps that you're the landlord. And it's a realization that dawns on most people when they learn that you can instead just buy and hold. So yeah, get strategic on what real estate you want to put into your portfolio, know how to run the numbers, buy a carefully bought property that's already renovated or it's brand new. Don't close off the markets that you'll consider to only your own local market. Expand nationally. And then this is all you have to do. You use a small down payment. The bank buys you the property, the tenants pay down the loan, the property manager handles everything, you collect cash every month, all the while leverage, inflation, and tax benefits build you massive wealth. So at its core, that's really how simple it is. Before you meet Jerry's new second investment coach, who you have heard here on the show before, this astounding scarcity, this dearth, this paucity. How long can I keep the synonyms going? This meagerness in the supply of American homes, like I've often talked about, here where we are, the most powerful nation in the world by a lot of measures, yet we only have about 1/3 of the amount of homes that are needed to house our own residents. And when it comes to affordable home types and like these entry-level homes, it is even worse than that. The shortage is even greater there, and that contributes to the homelessness problem. And it's interesting to see more and more solutions for this problem come to the surface to address the chronic housing shortage problem that's probably going to be with us for more than a decade. So what does become available inventory that comes onto the market? It gets soaked up by all the millennial demand, the biggest generation in history. Overcoming NIMBYism is challenging. More places recognize the problem, and more places are trying to do things like relax zoning and relax codes and regulations to help promote building. California's light touch density, or LTD as you'll see it stated in some places, that program, for example, that's attempting to address this, where a lot of times it's in lower and middle income California neighborhoods where you'll see an allowance for detached ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They're also known as mother-in-law apartments. California's light touch density, that promotes small lot single-family houses and attached single-family houses, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes to try to increase their housing density. And there is proposed legislation that would enable more ADU penetration in Colorado and Washington and North Carolina. But nationwide, one problem is that it's often simply not very profitable for developers to build entry-level single-family homes. It's just simply more profitable to build luxury homes. You also see this translate into apartment buildings, where you have a lot more building of Class A apartments, which means the most expensive rents and the best amenities for tenants. And then interest rates compounded the housing shortage problem, of course, because they rose so fast. A lot of people don't ever want to put their home on the market for sale since it's tied to an artificially low, really an already absurdly low interest rate. One interesting but newer angle to address the housing shortage problem nationally is the tax angle. Yeah, check it out. Two congressmen, one from Pennsylvania and another from California, they've introduced a bipartisan bill, and they want to double the capital gains tax exclusion for you if you sell your home and then therefore bring some inventory onto the market. So we're talking about primary residences here, not rentals. You might already know that the existing rules nationwide are that if you are single and you sell your house at a profit, your first $250K in profits or capital gains, that is totally tax sheltered. And if you're married, your first $500K in profits are exempt from taxes on your primary residence. Okay, so now what is called the More Homes on the Market Act, that's the name of it. Under that act, when a homeowner sells their home, they will be able to exclude $500K for single filers and $1 million married, okay? And it would also be indexed to inflation moving forward in the years after that. All right, so what it would do is double your capital gains tax exemption. And the current amounts, $250 and $500K, they were set way back in 1997, and it has not changed in 26 years. Now, imagine you as a homeowner, how you are doubly unlikely to want to sell your home and bring it to market if you would lose your low mortgage rate, and you'd get the double whammy of having to pay a lot of capital gains tax. So doubling this exemption threshold, that's going to help some reluctant homeowners put their homes up on the for sale shelf. Okay, yes, that would help somewhat. But here's the thing. Where would it help? You know, it wouldn't help so much inland in the heartland of America because property prices are simply lower. So doubling the amount that's exempt from taxes, that's going to help out more on the high price coasts. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California, Hawaii. I mean, a homeowner that bought their house in Santa Clara, California in 1997 for $300K and finds that it's now worth $1.8 million, oh, well, they'd have a $1.5 million capital gain if they sold. So increasing the exemption would shelter more of that $1.5 million gain from tax. And you know something, one, I guess, frustrating thing that I find about tax conversations in media articles about taxes is that it never states what the rate of tax is, how much you pay. That's an important part of the conversation, so I won't let that happen here. The long-term federal capital gains tax rate is nothing if you make under about $45K per year. It's a 15% rate for most people, and if you make more than about $500K per year, it is 20%. The least that you need to know is that a proposal to increase the amount of capital gains tax that gets sheltered could bring a few more homes onto the market, more so on the coasts. But there is virtually nothing on the horizon that's going to bring the supply of available homes back into balance with demand. Yeah, that is good for you. As an investor, that's what's keeping housing prices buoyant despite higher interest rates. And of course, that is bad for first-time homebuyer types. Coming up next, what's happening in the investment real estate market, and meet our new investment coach. I'm Keith Weinhold. You're listening to episode 453 of Get Rich Education. With JWB Real Estate Capital, Jacksonville real estate has outperformed the stock market by 44% over the last 20 years. It's proven to be a more stable asset, especially during recessions. Their vertically integrated strategy has led to 79% more home price appreciation compared to the average Jacksonville investor since 2013. JWB is ready to help your money, and to make it easy for everyday investors. Get started at jwbrealestate.com/GRE. That's jwbrealestate.com/GRE. GRE listeners can't stop talking about their service from Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They've provided our tribe with more loans than anyone. They're truly a top lender for beginners and veterans. It's where I go to get my own loans for single-family rental property up to fourplexes. So start your pre-qualification and you can chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. They'll even deliver your custom plan for growing your real estate portfolio. Start at ridgelendinggroup.com.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Tom Wheelwright. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
I'd like to welcome back Aundrea. She is here on the show with us from time to time because she has led operations for nearly 3 years here at GRE. She has international professional experience. She has worked in India and the UK, and she has her MBA. She has experience as both a broker and a realtor, meaning that she's also a member of the NAR. And I'll tell you, she's got way more letters behind her name than I do. And Aundrea, of the 26 letters of the alphabet, are there more behind your name than aren't behind your name?
There are, but they're not related to this podcast at all, so we won't talk about those.
Okay, I probably didn't even mention all the credentials that you have there formally. What's interesting, although we're both passionate real estate investors, we are opposites in a lot of ways. You are good with tax and legal. That's not my strong suit. And last year, I shared with you that I enjoy writing our Don't Quit Your Daydream letter each week, and you were incredulous. It was almost hard to contain yourself. I think out loud you said something like, "Oh my gosh," that was your reply to me. You just couldn't imagine that I would like doing that.
Yeah, it's something that I would not enjoy at all, but I guess it's good that we have complementary likes and dislikes, right?
If we were the same, one of us would be expendable. It was kind of like you would rather mine coal with a pickaxe and a shovel than write that letter, but I actually like writing that letter for our readers. That's how I feel about tax and legal stuff. I would probably try my hand at mining coal with a pickaxe and a shovel. As our free coaching service has become more popular here at GRE, and Naresh has more and more phone calls and more Zoom calls from you, the listener and follower here, it has become time to add a second investment coach to complement Naresh. Now, just a few of you have already talked to Aundrea and benefited from her free investment coaching, and I'd like to announce here that Aundrea is our new investment coach, so congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you. I am so excited to be in this role, and I know we're going to talk about what that means for our listeners a little bit too.
Yeah, and maybe you heard about a lot of those formal credentials that Aundrea has. Don't be intimidated talking to her. She is there especially for beginner questions, including if you've never even written an offer on a property. We're going to talk more about that later, about just how Aundrea helps you out, even helps write the offer for you, and so on. And I really want to make the most efficient use of you, the listener's time, even though her coaching is a free service for you, just like Naresh's is. So Aundrea is trusted to guide you. And not only was Aundrea first a GRE listener years ago, but being with us here at GRE almost 3 years now, she really understands our mission here and how to align that with what you need. And besides having all those formal credentials that I mentioned earlier, Aundrea is a highly active practitioner in the field, investing herself. So with that in mind, and now that you are our brand new second investment coach, why don't you just get us up to speed before we talk about the coaching later? Tell us what's happening with you investment-wise.
So things have been interesting the past year. I've changed a little bit of the way that I'm doing things and the opportunities I'm looking for, but I still kind of have some of those basics that I still kind of fall back on. So the past year, I've shared with, I think, people on here that my husband opened a new business up here in Detroit. So we've been using that to help kind of build our real estate portfolio up here. So we're still purchasing single family homes. We're still doing a mix of wholesaling as well. So we've been kind of focused on that and how those two businesses can complement each other. The past few months, I've done a little bit of something different than what I typically do. The past few months, I've been doing some fix and flips. So we've done some renovations, flipped them, pulled the money back out, bought more properties, and continued with that. The three things I'm looking at right now are, number one, some more international investing. As you all in here may know, I have actually purchased my first international investment a couple years ago through one of our GRE marketplace providers. Yeah. That's still in process. It's not quite complete. It's going to be complete in the next couple months. And it's gotten me so excited. I'm looking at other international investments right now as well. So that's kind of the number one thing at the moment.
Yeah. Now, you and your husband moved from Southeast Georgia to Detroit a couple years ago, and you now have dual residences. You split your time between the Detroit metro area and between Southeast Georgia. And it's your husband's business that he began there in Metro Detroit, that home restoration business that do things like crime scene cleanup or water damage in properties. It's actually led to a deal flow source for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when he opened this business and we started deciding what kind of business we wanted to open, we wanted something that was complementary to real estate and kind of fed into our overall strategy with purchasing. And so that kind of fell right into our laps, and it was a really good option. And so it has allowed us to acquire more properties. We've been able to find properties for investors up here, all kinds of different things.
And then the international part of your portfolio, you really got started with tropical tiny homes there in Nicaragua through gremarketplace.com/tiny homes. And then you're looking to expand the international part of your portfolio.
Exactly. So we really, and I don't want to be political at all, but we would like the option to have residency in other countries just in case we ever need to. Plus, we really like traveling to other places. So we thought, why don't we just buy some homes in places we like to visit, and then we can go stay there. And when we're not there, we can rent them and make money off of it.
Yeah, 100%. That's some short-term rental income that you can get when you're not using that Nicaraguan tropical tiny home. I've taken a look at the photos of it. It's got good proximity to the coast there. So that's the international part of your portfolio. And then what else do you have going on?
One of the basic tenets of real estate investing that I have not been doing the best job of, frankly, is looking to see how I can maximize my current investments. And so I have spent a lot of time the past few weeks saying, how can I take what I already have and either add on to these properties, change the use of these properties, or just switch things up a little bit to be able to make more cash flow and to potentially be able to force some equity into these homes already. So I've been reevaluating my own portfolio a lot the last few months.
A lot of times when one reevaluates their portfolio, they see certain things, maybe finding a better and higher use type for that property, like you've touched on. Oftentimes when one reevaluates and pulls back big picture in their portfolio, there's been so much appreciation the past 3 years that one often finds that they have a lot of dead equity accumulating in them as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened to me. I kind of wanted to kick myself recently when I realized how much equity had been sitting on for the past couple of years and I haven't done anything with it. So now I'm in the process of trying to evaluate how much of that I can actually pull out and how I want to redeploy that into other investments.
Of course, this can really change one's strategy when they understand that home equity is unsafe, illiquid, and its rate of return is always zero. One begins to understand their opportunity cost and what they can do with that debt equity. Of course, we have different considerations now because we're in a higher interest rate environment than we were a few years ago.
That's right. I think that's what and I know better than this, Keith, right? After following you for so many years and knowing what I know, I can't believe that I'm letting this be kind of a barrier to my investing, but it has been. So every time I've sat down and tried to evaluate how to redeploy that capital and pull it out, I'm getting stuck on the interest rates myself. So as you mentioned at the beginning of this, I'm a numbers person. So being able to pencil out exactly what this means for me financially. So if I am going from having a 4.9% interest rate on my commercial portfolio, which is what I have, to an 8.5%, what does that mean? And if I redeploy that capital, how much more am I going to make in the long run than just looking at that interest rate itself, which has been hard for me to do?
Have you found any success getting a second mortgage on non-owner occupied properties so you can leave that first mortgage low rate in place?
Yeah, so that is an option. The second mortgage is still higher, right? But I'm able to only use that higher rate on a certain percentage of my portfolio. What I have run into as I've gone down this path, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have as well, is the loan to value ratios have gone down a little bit. So I used to be able to get 75 to 80%, and now that's looking more like 60 to 65%, depending on which lenders I use.
All right, so we're talking about loan to value ratios on non-owner occupied properties, really cutting down your leverage ratio then. If you are able to get a second mortgage on an investment property, if the mortgage interest rate is 8 plus, you might be thinking, well, okay, I can go ahead and reinvest that in another property since real estate pays 5 ways. I'm going to beat 8%. But of course, you need cash flow to service that debt. As long as your cash flow is okay in order to service that debt, you're probably going to be better off making that trade. But of course, the cash flow is what controls the mortgage on that property for you.
That's right. Exactly.
So you mentioned commercial loans previously. I know that you have some of your loans for investment properties sort of packaged up differently than a lot of investors do. Tell us about that.
I know there's some people that would probably like this approach, and then some that are like, you shouldn't do this. So it's just personal preference. But I quickly ran into filling up my golden ticket, per se. And the golden ticket is those 10 Fannie Freddie loans that investors can get with the lower interest rate and better terms. I got those 10 very fast. So I had to start looking into ways to refinance out of the existing Fannie Freddie loans to be able to get more of those. And the path that I chose on that is to bucket certain properties into commercial loans. So there may be loans that I have 3 or 4 in. There may be some that I have 1 in. It just depends on the value of that property and kind of what my strategy is. But I have multiple commercial loans now, and that's opened me back up to get 10 more Fannie Freddie, which is what I'm in the process of doing.
All right, so packaging some of your 10 into a commercial loan and bundling those all up. And if you do that with, say, 6 properties of your golden ticket loans and get them all packaged up, well, now you've got 6 more open spots for golden ticket loans, what we call conventional Fannie Freddie loans, those ones at the best rates and terms. And some call these portfolio loans. Oftentimes a bank, it tends to be a regional bank in a lot of cases, are the ones that might do something like take these 6 properties, just in this example, and bundle them all up. So can you tell us some more about the mechanics of that?
The way that I decided to structure it is I have some homes that are, say, Section 8. They're much lower value homes. I typically personally put a few of those into one. I don't put a lot of extremely expensive homes or the higher priced homes, bundle them together. Those are usually standalone on their own. But what I do like is that you're only paying the closing costs and everything once if you're bundling them together as opposed to buying each one separately. So that's the route I've gone. I found better rates with those local community banks in the areas that I invest in, and that's how I do it.
That makes sense from some perspective, keeping some of your higher cost properties on those conventional loans since they are the ones at the best rates and terms. How do the rates and terms on these bundled commercial loans for your residential property, how do they compare to the Fannie Freddie conventionals?
Right now, when I got the last ones that I bundled, it was back in 2021. So it was a little bit of a different environment that we were in. But I met with the bank just last week to kind of talk about what their rates are right now and what we're looking at. And they're typically doing 20-year amortization schedules with a 5-year interest rate reset. And the interest rates are going anywhere between 8 and 9%, depending on the bank, at least what I'm seeing in the areas I invest in.
Talk to us some more about some of your favorite investment areas. Of course, you split residences between 2 investor-advantaged areas. You're really fortunate that way. That's Southeast Georgia, which is where you're from, and then Metro Detroit as well, where you get advantageous rent-to-price ratios there too.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. So I personally prefer cash flow over appreciation. Both are nice. We typically get both. But I really like the Southeast market. So I like Florida, I like Georgia, even some of the Carolinas, just depending on what you're looking for. Alabama is a really great market. I also like the Midwest. So Midwest, you're still finding really great cash flowing homes in like Ohio, for example. Even in Michigan, we have some great 1%, which I know everyone likes that, the 1% rule, which isn't really a rule. But those are the markets that I tend to invest in myself.
Yeah, I've even resorted to calling that the 1% guide. Like a rule is something that shouldn't be broken. But of course, when we're analyzing our numbers, it all comes down to, does income exceed expenses on a property? So yeah, why don't you just get into a couple more of those areas, including, as you're talking about them, letting our audience know if you can help them coaching in those areas. Why don't we start with where you're from? Now, Southeast Georgia, it's an area that we haven't talked about too much on the show here. And we're basically talking about an area that's just north of Jacksonville, Florida, and that includes Brunswick, Georgia. So we think about that geography. We think about a coastal area. Oftentimes, coastal areas are where short-term rentals work better. And as you go inland, there aren't as many short-term rental vacation type of people inland. So once one goes inland in Georgia, just in general, that tends to work better for long-term rentals. So can you tell us about your strategy there in the Brunswick, Georgia area, which is where you're from?
That is the area I grew up in. When I started real estate investing, when I was a brand new investor, I didn't really know what I was doing, like a lot of people. And I started purchasing in that area just because I knew it. It was familiar. And I knew it cash flowed, right? So that was the most important thing to me. What I didn't realize is I was kind of sitting on a gold mine in that area because it wasn't really discovered by a lot of investors outside of the community. There were a lot of economical drivers for why rents were high in that area, but prices were still low. And so I still have a large majority of my portfolio in that area, and that is still where I do a significant amount of my investing. In it, I use kind of a mix of investment styles there. I do long-term buy and hold for single family. I do it for multifamilies as well. And then I do a lot of midterm rentals as well, and we can talk about what that means.
And you are still back there in that area about monthly in Southeast Georgia. You have a lot of properties there. You do a lot of business there. You help other people get started with rental property in that area. And I think, Aundrea, you and I touched on this before on a show. This includes Jekyll Island, one of the Georgian islands just offshore there. And this is a part of Georgia they call the Golden Isles.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really interesting area. If you haven't heard of it before, I bet you have once. Keith mentioned Jekyll Island here. So Federal Reserve was created this area. We have a lot of generational vacationers here. And what I mean by that is it's a beach town. There's multiple islands. And so people from the tri-state area and even nationally come here year after year after year. And they've been doing it since the 40s. So that's one thing that's really good about this area is it's a vacation town. It always has been. They're not going to start restricting short-term rentals just because of that. The other thing is there's a large growing older population in our area. So what that means is we're having state-of-the-art medical care. We're having a lot of people here that are traveling nurses, for example, to help expand that healthcare with the aging population. And so that's where these midterm rentals come into place is those nurses and doctors need somewhere to live while they're here on their short-term assignments.
That's really interesting, matching up the midterm rental with that demographic that needs it, these traveling medical professionals. Now, midterm rentals, I think of that as having a tenancy duration of between 30 days and 6 months. That's what I think of as a midterm rental.
Yeah, that's about right. Depending on who you talk to is what the definition of this, but we usually look at anywhere from 28 to 30 days or more. You start getting over 6 months, you're looking more towards that long-term rental. But we do have a lot of people that rent from us or from my clients that have 1-year contracts that they're there for, and it is a fully furnished rental for that entire time at a premium price.
Yeah, so midterm rentals, we're just about always seeing those as being furnished.
That's right. They're furnished. They come with electric, sewer, trash, landscaping, internet, everything that somebody would want to live there where they don't have to do anything.
What kind of platforms are midterm rentals advertised on? For example, short-term rentals are typically on Airbnb and VRBO. How about midterm rentals?
Midterm rentals are similar, but with some differences. So we do still list those on platforms like Airbnb or VRBO. We also have platforms such as Furnished Finder, which is really good for looking for short-term nurses, for example. A lot of the rentals that I get in the area are direct bookings just because of the relationships I've developed in the community. Everybody kind of knows me as the midterm rental gal. And so anytime a local realtor or local business has someone coming into town that they need to find housing for, they usually pick up the phone and give me a call. Same thing with the hospital. I've developed relationships with them and they have me on a list. Basically, if they have someone coming into town, they say, hey, call her. She may have something available for you.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's great to really have the insights there in the market that you're from. You can leverage Aundrea's local knowledge there in an investor advantage play, Southeast Georgia. Aundrea, on the long-term rental side, can you just give us an idea of the rent to purchase price ratio? Just something about how much rent for how much purchase price on one of the long-term places.
You are typically looking around 1%.
Wow.
If you want a little bit of a nicer home, you may go a little bit below that to the 0.9%. If you're willing to take on something that needs a little bit of work and maybe in a little bit of a different type of community, you may be getting over 1% there.
Now, when you get over 1%, like you do in some areas, is it difficult to find a respectful rent-paying tenant, or can you still find a respectful rent-paying tenant in Southeast Georgia today over 1%?
We still find them. So we have a very, very low eviction rate with my property management company. Our tenants have paid through the pandemic. They're paying now. Every now and then you will get, a bad apple, but it's very rare as long as you do your due diligence on the background checks and interviews.
Well, I want to ask you if you have another investor advantaged area to share with us. But the first one for you, the listener here, is Southeast Georgia, where Aundrea is a local expert there. Now, she helps you nationally and even internationally as a coach at GRE Marketplace. But this is just one area where she really has specific boots on the ground expertise. Tell us about another area, unless you have any follow-up stuff on Southeast Georgia.
No, nothing else on Southeast Georgia. I love the area. It's fun to vacation to, and it's a really good cash flowing area. So if you're interested, I'm happy to talk to you about it. The second area that I want to talk about is something that we probably haven't talked about much here at GRE, and this is the Intermountain West. So we have a provider there that is very, very experienced. Has been doing this a very long time, that has some inventory there that I think is very exciting and we want to talk about.
Tell us about that, because the Intermountain West, since the pandemic, that has had outsized population growth and job growth and output growth there. So a lot of people want to get a piece of that. So yeah, tell us some more about the Intermountain West and the opportunities you see there.
This particular provider that we've been working with for a long time, They work in multiple states. Right now, they have a brand new development in Utah. This development's really exciting for a few reasons. It has a mix of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Or, Keith, I know you make fun of me because I call them quadplexes being from the South. Or quadruplexes also.
Right, quadruplexes. It's hard for me to even say that word. It always reminds me of my quadricep, my leg muscle or something. I start thinking about anatomy and I got to get my head back to real estate investing. Yes, I call them fourplexes, but I won't correct anyone that calls them quadruplexes.
I know, always the Southerners that we get made fun of. But yeah, so this development has a mix of those available. They're townhouse style. I personally really like the fourplex model that they have. They each have 2 beds, 2 baths. The community has everything that a tenant could want. So they're nicer, more upscale communities. They come with a clubhouse, a gym, playgrounds for the kids, dog parks for the dogs to go to. The inside of these homes are decked out with granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. And the most exciting thing about it is, to me personally, is that these brand new homes come with built-in equity, which you're not seeing a lot nowadays.
First of all, what part of Utah are these places in?
Yeah, so it's in Ogden, Utah. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. It's about 1 hour or so north of Salt Lake City, Ogden, Utah. Yep. Tell us about the built-in equity. How does that work? Are they just somehow regularly getting appraised over the contract price?
They are. So you're locking in the price that they've set for these at the contract price. They have to be built, so they're in the process of being built. And what they've seen is by the time they're built a few months later, the price is appreciated enough that you've got some built-in equity right off the bat as soon as you close on those properties. So not only are they cash flowing, you're also getting the appreciation during that process.
So back in Southeast Georgia, we were talking about existing properties where you, the listener, would just go ahead and get a regular, conventional rental property loan for those. So here we're talking about new build duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, really in Path of Progress, Utah, where we've seen both a lot of in-migration and you also have a high natural birth rate there that's just really increasing Utah's population. It's typically in the top few states for population growth year after year, but go ahead and tell us more about these new builds. So therefore, does one need to come in with a construction loan and then convert that over to a purchase loan?
That is correct. You're not going to come in with a purchase loan. You're going to have to do a construction loan on these, and that will convert at a later time. So you're having to put a deposit down like you would if you were purchasing a regular home or a new build. and you will wait until the end of it. It's 6 to 9 months, I think, on the construction period right now. And then those units should be complete for you at the end of the year.
This could be really attractive. New build in Utah, but your purchase price, it is locked in. So therefore, appreciation continues during the construction stage. That's where oftentimes that built-in equity is coming into play.
That's exactly right. And, it's really hard right now. A lot of our listeners probably know this, but it's very hard right now to get brand new construction, quadplexes or quadruplexes. So we're really excited to be able to have these because not a lot of providers offer this.
And I know purchase prices can certainly be higher for these because they are new build. Can you just give us some idea about the purchase prices on these new build duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes?
For the quadplexes, which is what they have available right now, you're looking at about $970,000, give or take just a little bit, depending on when you lock in your contract. So these used to be over $1 million. We're actually seeing that they've been able to lower the price a little bit for you guys to get in at a lower price point, but they still appraise over $1 million typically, and so you're still getting that equity.
If you want to put down a big chunk, and we're talking about your golden ticket loans here, if you can swing it with it's probably going to be a 25% down payment on these new build properties. Now, this can be a way to tie up a big loan amount all in just one loan.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so we're talking about Ogden, Utah here. Is there any last thing that we should know about these particular properties?
They released these properties a couple of weeks ago, and they've already started going very, very fast. So the only thing I would say is if you're truly, truly interested in this, you may want to get in touch with me as soon as possible because I don't think these are going to be here much longer.
We'll definitely ask Aundrea about that if that interests you, or the properties in Southeast Georgia, which tend to be long-term rental, single-family homes there versus these new build duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes in the Intermountain West. Aundrea, are there any last areas that you want to highlight particularly for the people that you're helping out with coaching?
Those are the two big ones that I'm really excited about. Keith, there's one thing we didn't mention that I know a lot of people are probably going to ask. People have seen in coastal areas the prices of insurance and taxes shooting through the roof the last couple of years.
Right.
Florida particularly, that's been an area where sometimes rates have tripled or quadrupled in instances.
Oh, I know. My existing single-family home properties in Florida, some of their insurance rates have 3x'd.
Yes, it's been crazy, the increase. The good thing about the coastal Georgia market is we have not seen those types of increases. So yes, it's on the coast. Yes, there is a higher risk of natural disasters there, but the rates have not increased like they have Florida. So you can still get them at very low prices compared to the Florida area.
Of course, hurricanes can still hit there, but yes, geographically, there is a bit of an indentation on the coast there, giving it maybe a bit more hurricane protection than just outright peninsular Florida has. Aundrea, you've helped a number of people with coaching them already. Now, why don't you just talk about more with how you help them with helping write the purchase contract for the property and holding their hand through the financing, inspection, appraisal, even the management agreement. That's the agreement that you, the investor, write between both you and the property manager, for example. So just tell us more about how you help people.
This is my favorite thing to do besides buying properties for myself, of course, right? It's helping people achieve financial freedom. So the way that I operate is I like to understand exactly what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and then we can find a market that may be best for you. If that's Southeast Georgia, great. If it is, I can help you through the whole process, and my team can even manage the property for you. If you really like the Midwest, we've got some great providers there that have good cash flowing properties. We will help you determine what price you're offering if there is a negotiation and not a set price. We'll help with the contract process along the way. We'll help review that with you. We will help all the way through the closing process. And then we'll help turn you over to the property management company as well. So we've vetted the property managers, we've vetted the team, so we know them front to back, and we can just make sure that you're buying a solid investment that's going to help you cash flow.
And we're really helping make it easy for you. Years ago, when I launched this show, people began to get interested in real estate investing. They understand how they got paid 5 ways at the same time. So it just organically grew that I would help introduce them to providers that could provide them with properties conducive to this strategy. And really now we've layered on top of that for over a year and a half now with our coaching program in helping make that handoff, which is what Naresh and Aundrea do. It's completely free, really making it easy for you. So Aundrea, I know you've talked with a few of our listeners already. What are some of the common questions from GRE coached listeners and followers?
The common questions we have, the first thing that usually comes up is, can I get 1%? And the answer is that really what you want? So let's talk about what your goals are to determine if 1% is really what you're trying to achieve. So that's number one. But the answer is yes, we can find that for you. We get a lot of others of show me the data to support the rental prices that you're telling me I can get. So we're able to provide that and show you recent comps and examples of homes that are renting for the prices that we show you. So that's probably the top two things I'm getting at the moment.
Oftentimes, real estate agents, traditional agents, they might not give you the best rental number all the time because they're not there in the market, because they're oftentimes not income property investors themselves. We often talk to the property managers in these various national and international markets, and the manager is the one that knows. And when the manager tells you they can get, say, $1,400 rent, well, they're pretty incentivized to tell you the truth because they are the ones that have to actually go out and get it. So, that's interesting that people are still talking about the 1% thing. Maybe it's due to it being so simple and it being such a simple calculation to figure out. But of course, it comes down to that cash flow. So let us know, before connecting with you, how should someone be prepared? I mean, they're probably going to have a 20 to 25% down payment ready and be prepared that way. But tell us some more about what they need to do to be prepared before reaching out to you.
The number one thing is to make sure you understand why you want to invest, right? So I think a lot of people think that investing's trendy, or they think they may want to do it, but really try to understand why you want to invest. As Keith mentioned, you'll typically have to have a 25% down payment. So that's really important to make sure that you have that money to even put down. But it also can't hurt to go ahead and talk to a lender and make sure you're pre-qualified as well. Because once you start talking to me, I'll show you deals, and some of these may go very, very quickly. So the faster we have you pre-qualified to purchase those properties, the better deal you're typically going to get, and you're not going to have to wait as long.
Yeah, getting pre-qualified or pre-approved, which is a higher level with your lender beforehand, that'll really help. And then you're making both the best use of your time and Aundrea's time. And then once you know that you're pre-approved, then you can have the fun of helping Aundrea connect you with properties and helping you write the offer and leading you all the way through that process. Well, Aundrea, before I ask you if you have any last thoughts about coaching or anything else, if you want to get started with our coaching service, you can do that at gremarketplace.com/coach. And I'm happy to tell you that is a completely free service. Aundrea is in there as one of our investment coaches now, as it has been quite a popular service. She's very, very capable, proficient, and experienced in helping you. Any last thoughts, Aundrea?
No, I don't think so. If you go to the URL Keith just gave you, you'll see my photo up there, and then you should have a link to be able to book a meeting directly with me if you'd like. So I look forward to chatting with some of you and getting to know you better. gremarketplace.com/coach. It's great to have you on board. Well, you've already been on board, but now in a different capacity, helping out our followers. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Keith.
Yeah, please don't pull your quadricep while you're looking at a quadruplex. Our free investment coaching service has definitely been popular. I mean, people have been lining up for it like they're paying respect to the Queen in England, or lining up like it's the release of the newest iPhone, or perhaps Black Friday at Walmart. So it's terrific to have Aundrea on board to help. She's often helping you with off-market properties there at GRE Marketplace. And the marketplace, that is more of an organic farmer's market than it is a big box store. That's why you want to check back regularly for new offerings. Or you can just tell Aundrea what you're looking for, and if it isn't available, she'll get back to you when it is. We help you nationwide and at times even beyond the border. So with the areas that we discussed specifically today, my quick takes on those are in the Intermountain West. These higher priced new build duplexes to fourplexes, they are what you want if you're not emphasizing cash flow. They are for long-term growth, inflation profiting, when you want to leverage more dollars with long-term fixed interest rate debt. And it is up toward $1 million purchase prices for those new construction fourplexes. And that current development is in Ogden, Utah. And it's not quite a full hour from Salt Lake City. It's closer to 40 minutes, so more commuter friendly there. Then in Southeast Georgia, Aundrea's home market, really, that's where you'll go for cash flow in long-term, mid-term, or sometimes short-term rentals available there. Nationwide, Aundrea helps you with selecting a property that meets your buyer criteria. Then if you want, she'll help you run the numbers, write and submit the offer for the property, including knowing if a particular provider can be negotiable on their price and all those other checkpoints on the way to your property closing day. Yes, despite America's housing shortage, we have a lot of great long-time real estate relationships with providers here because of our long experience. So over time here, you can choose the investment coach that resonates with you. Either Naresh or Aundrea, both are highly experienced. Each of them, just like me, are active and direct real estate investors themselves. You can't make any money from the property that you don't own, so I've really endeavored to make it an easier experience for you. Coaching is free. You'll see both investment coaches' smiling faces there, so you can get started at gremarketplace.com/coach. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.